I said I could turn it on. Now I'm turning it on. Thank you all for coming. I'm Brian Pointer, Chair of the Natural Resources Commission, and welcome to the beautiful spring 30-degree morning. We appreciate everybody making the effort to come. I do call the meeting to order. We may have a couple who are dialing in remotely, and if and when they do that, just notify me that they're on. But the chair does recognize a quorum. I'll make a statement at the beginning that we are live streaming this as tradition has held, and if there are anything comes through you, I assume Whitney, you'll let us know if there's any questions. Precious, has anyone asked to speak today? Did anyone sign in? While she's checking on that, we'll move to the agenda. The all-important election of officers, which mistakenly we didn't do in January. Shame on me for not noticing that. Pardon? Oh, yes, we should probably do the order of the agenda, shouldn't we? Is there a motion to accept the minutes that were distributed prior to this meeting? Is there a motion? It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions?
I'm going to abstain. I was not here for the meeting. I think one of my attorneys in our firm worked on a matter, so
Noted. With that, it's a motion, a second. Any further discussion?
We'll need to do roll call voting if Phil ends up joining online.
That I was aware, but if we don't have them online, we don't need to have roll call votes, so we can do voice. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Now the important part. Historically, we've elected officers in January. That was precluded, so we are moving that to today. Is there a motion from one of the commission members for a slate of officers?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept or nominate Brian Pointer, Chair, Jane Ann, Vice Chair, and Al Morrison, Secretary.
Thank you. Is there a motion? It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Appreciate that, John, and thank you for the privilege. We'll move to Director Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. Great to see you. Thank you very much for making the trip here from your corner of Indiana. I think what I'm going to do today, with my time, if you don't mind, is one of my favorite things that I get to do, and that's brag on the people of the DNR, my colleagues, that truly make this huge machine go and work. And so back at the end of the year, beginning of this calendar year, I'd talked with Maddie, and we were kind of trying to pull together all of the successes that we had as an agency, and you know that list was getting long. And I said, why don't you talk to the deputy directors, have them talk to all their division heads, and let's try to put a list together. And so that came back to us, and I don't know, 60, 70 pages long. Of successes that we had. And so I kind of took all that out and put it down to about 10 pages where I just grabbed one success from each division and something to highlight some of the different aspects and the wide range of what we do. And then from there, we put it into a little bit of a presentation that we did at the All DNR gathering the other day. So I'm going to do an abridged version of that, but I think it's important for you all to hear kind of everything that we do. And so here's some highlights, and we'll start with law enforcement. We broke ground on District 6 headquarters here back about 2 months ago or so, and I saw just last week the equipment is down there in Edinburgh, and so that group of conservation officers who have been working out of 4 FEMA trailers on federal property will now be moving over to Quartermaster, our land, in a building that we will be building in conjunction with DOC and our forestry division. So pretty exciting for those folks, and something that they definitely deserve. Still in Division of Law Enforcement, the UAV program, the drone program that we have. Last year there were 3,095 flights, total flight distance of 3,017 miles, 9,837 photos collected, and 741 videos collected. That translates into more than 31 missing persons located, including 24 juveniles, all found alive and well in 2005. We successfully tracked 9 whooping cranes and malfunctioning transmitters. Our law enforcement conducted a public safety dive school, added 8 new divers, with 41 certified divers currently serving statewide. The Hunt for Hunger program expanded to an all-time high of 51 participating processors. For those of you who aren't 100% sure what that is, when one of our hunters takes a deer, let's say, and they don't need the meat, they'll take it to one of these processors. They'll process it. They get refunded for that process, but then that is given to the needy. And so I think that's a great program. And then we obviously also had a group of about 12 to 15 officers deployed down to Kentucky for the floods back in February 2005. Our Turn In a Poacher program had a great year. We had 343 online submissions. The tip hotline received 3,836 phone calls. We had total reward payouts of $600, and we had an 8% increase in total reports compared to 2024. And our Hunter Ed, we had 313 in-person classes. We had 15,000 plus total students take part in hunter education last year. And our youth camps, we had over 250 participants. And then one of the great things that we do as well, we've done it for a long time now, and I'd love to invite our PIO, Jet Quillen, up to the microphone to talk about our NASPE event, which happened this past Saturday, and we've been doing for quite a long time now.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you. Yeah, just to touch on a couple things with the National Archeries in the School program is we're always looking for ways that we can interact and engage with the younger generations that are coming up and get them interested in the outdoors, get them interested in hunting, fishing, anything natural resources. And what we've found is one of the most influential programs we have is the National Archeries in the School program. This was our 20th year of doing the state tournament. We held it this past Saturday at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. We have over 600 schools that participate in this program. So essentially each school will attend qualifying events to make it to the state tournament. And we had over 2,100 students qualify for the target shooting portion, and then we had another 700 qualify for the 3D target shooting portion of the tournament. So it's broken down into 3 groups: high school, middle school, and elementary. And essentially it's a school team. It's just like the basketball team or football team, but it's archery. So it gives that competitive edge to kids. It builds that team camaraderie. But if you go there and you see these kids that walk around, it's a long event. It's a long day. It starts at 7 a.m., usually doesn't wrap up till 7 p.m. And if you have kids, you know that's a long day to be somewhere. But we really tried to cater to them, bringing in different types of food vendors, different types of booths set up. We had a recruiting booth. We had state parks, fish and wildlife, a lot of different things for them to interact with and see. But to see, over 2,000 kids there with their parents, interacting with each other, different schools, it was just a wonderful event. I don't have all the winners memorized, but I do know Castle High School won the high school team portion of it. But overall, just a very well ran, very well attended, and I think we'll see that continue to grow as it progresses.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the Nationals is down in Louisville this year, so I'm sure that we have a good number of schools and students headed down to Louisville for the national championship in a few weeks. Yep, great. So just to continue on, go to Division of Fish and Wildlife and Nature Preserves. The launch of a new licensing system called Go Outdoors. We had $30,000 in donations through the new license system, with customers simply rounding up their transactions. Key species recovery work, including mussels, crayfish frogs, hellbenders, wood rats, Franklin ground squirrels. In the Division of Forestry, we provided counties with $357,029 to support rural fire service. Of every board foot of tree that is cut, a timber that is cut within each county in our state forest, a certain percentage, I believe it's 15%, goes back to that county. And so we do the best we can, obviously, in a lot of different ways to be good community partners with the communities and counties that we're in. And we completed 1,431 acres of invasive species treatments. Division of State Parks, the expansion to the Lincoln Amphitheater at Lincoln State Park. That's a beautiful facility. I'm not sure if all of you have been down there yet. I've been down there once, not for a concert. Later this year, September 5th, I'm going down to Sawyer Brown. I'm looking forward to that. But they've got a great lineup of concerts and shows, and that venue is beautiful. I'd put that up against any similar size venue in the state. We also introduced 45 track chairs to use at state parks and state park inns, funding by Lilly Endowment with at least one coming to every park. We had the ribbon cutting, so to speak, for those track chairs here last week, and it was a great event. We got a heck of a lot of great press from that, and rightfully so. It will be something that will open up our trails and our parks to people with mobility issues in ways that we've never been able to do before. And we certainly have, a big thank you to Lilly Endowment, but also to all of our folks in parks that have worked and our finance division and procurement and everybody who helped to make this happen. So it's another good team effort. Division of Land Acquisition in 2025, 22 fee simple acquisitions for 984 acres, 17 conservation easements equating to 1,945 acres, and 19 easements granted across DNR-owned land. In our Division of Reclamation, Oil and Gas, we performed 12,219 oil injection and gas well inspections, as well as 2,888 storage facility inspections. That's boots on the ground, people going out to all the different corners of this state and working with our different operators and companies all throughout Indiana. And I think that shows obviously the amount of time and effort and coordination it takes to do that. Enforcement, we plugged 28 wells, restored 2 fluid facilities, and received $73,800 in penalty payments. And with carbon, assisted with the Class 6 primacy research and application to EPA for primacy. Division of Water, staff assisted local officials in Vandenberg and Warwick counties in the formation of the Pigeon Creek Watershed Development Commission, first of its kind. If you look where a lot of our watersheds are up north, staff sits on the commission and have been assisting in getting plans and projects approved. So they have definitely been busy and working hard as well. Division of Historic Preservation and Archaeology, tax credits. So they assisted in legislative changes to the residential historic tax credit program to increase the number of homeowners benefiting from the program without increasing costs. And the Wabash River Heritage Corridor Fund Program, 2 of 8 projects are complete, with 2 more nearing completion. Nearly $424,000 of the $600,000 grant pool has been dispersed, leveraging more than $147,000 in local matching funds. We move on here. MIS, so this is our IT division. They have removed 50 sites from the IoT backbone, thus removing 106 IoT devices, costing $317.49 each per month. Total yearly savings of $403,847 in operating costs. That's real money that we are saving by making those steps, and it's a great thing that they've been working on. DNR staff buried 11,500 feet of fiber at Charlestown and Brown County State Park, costing $17,877 to us. This saved $982,122 of a one-time cost over the quoted cost for the QPA provider. This provides internet and phone service at the Brown County Horse Gatehouse and Bathhouse Comfort Station, as well as Charlestown State Park and Camp Gate and service area. So annually right now, from the changes that MIS has made, we're saving a real $783,963. So that is great work by that group. Our Division of Entomology and Plant Pathology, Staff, they scraped 14,188 spotted lanternfly egg masses, which equates to over 500,000 insects destroyed. So they are literally on their knees, crawling underneath bushes and shrubs, and in a lot of places that aren't real comfortable, and finding these egg masses and destroying them. And that's not an easy job, not a fun job, but they do it because it needs to be done, and so that's a great thing. They've also 4,774 tree of heaven were documented at 824 locations in 45 counties throughout the state during the staff normal course of duty. DNR Legal, they are always busy behind the scenes, and this past year was no exception. Internal audit, the property and cardholder audits piloted with electronic functions, major paper reduction achieved there. With carbon, advanced process to secure Class 6 primacy for regulating carbon sequestration. With state parks, Indiana Finance Authority water infrastructure modernization supported across state park properties. Land holding, real property transaction process streamlined through SCM for transparency and consistency. In public records, APRA workload managed while volume increased. And finally, our admin bureau reconciled a $14 million projected operating budget shortfall, reorganized the DNR Administrative Bureau, purchased 50 DNR law enforcement vehicles, and reissued 30 vehicles across the department, and initiated the digitization, thank you, of all DNR engineering drawings, which is not an easy process. Also completed design for McCormick's Creek State Park and Ferdinand State Forest campgrounds, and construction of contracts awarded for the installation of 21 playgrounds on DNR properties. And finally, these numbers are ones that always amaze me. So they performed 8,698 accounts receivable deposits, entered 27,990, and approved 27,832 accounts payable vouchers, and processed 2,182 travel authorizations and expense reports. The amount of time and effort, obviously, and attention to detail that goes into that is astounding, Greg, right? And so the work that everybody does in this agency is truly astounding, and the amount of time and effort that people put in, it definitely does not go unnoticed, and it is very much appreciated. And I just wanted to take a few minutes to kind of express that to you all, so you can get a better understanding of what the DNR boots on the ground and our colleagues do daily. So thank you to them, and I appreciate you taking the time to let me present that.
Good job. Thank you. Yep. You're showing your age. I want to see Sawyer Brown.
Oh, yeah. 90s country doesn't get
gonna
any
have to
better.
go to that.
Yeah, I know Holly's going to be there.
Thank you very much, Director. We'll turn to our deputy directors, starting with Chris Smith.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chairman. With your permission, Deputy Director Miller's out today, so I'm going to give his as well, too, if I can just roll right into
Absolutely.
that. All right. Good morning. It's spring, and staff are swinging into action across all different property types. The normal maintenance for getting prepared for visitors, but that also includes things like prescribed fire, invasive species control, as the director mentioned here just a short time ago, are top of the list right now. Assuming weather holds for tomorrow, staff will conduct a 900-acre burn down at the O'Bannon Woods Harrison Crawford Complex tomorrow in Harrison County, and several other burns are scheduled throughout the system as the spring season allows. Other things going on through the Natural Resources Foundation, educators interested in taking their K through 12 students on a field trip to a state park property for the 26-27 school year can now apply for a grant, a maximum $500 award that helps cover transportation costs and programming fees and other material costs. Those applications are being accepted currently through the end of April, and then we will get word back out to participating schools in May on that one. So looking forward to making it able to have school kids come and take those field trips with us. Director quickly mentioned the track chair delivery. This time last week, we were right here announcing the delivery of 45 track chairs to be distributed to every state park and inn. A track chair is an all-terrain electric power wheelchair that helps people with limited mobility safely explore trails throughout our properties. The purchase of the 45 chairs were made possible by funding through the Lilly Endowment. That was $1 million of the $50 million grant the endowment made to the department in 2024. So we are continuing to make accessibility progress throughout the system there. So the 45 new chairs will supplement the 13 chairs that we already had in our inventory. Spring Lair grants have been awarded, so nearly $1.5 million in grants funded 48 projects throughout the state. The spring round focuses on sediment removal and log jams, as well as aquatic weed control. This fall, we will issue the second round, which is focused on biologic and engineering grants. So a lot of good work going on throughout the Lakes region with those Lair grants. Sticking with Division of Fish and Wildlife and Nature Preserves, the department implemented the new permanent rule that created the invasive carp harvest permit. This new permit opens avenues for large-scale removal of invasive carp, fosters economic opportunities for those doing the collection, and helps protect native fish populations and recreational users. Invasive carp continue to be a significant issue across the Midwest, negatively impacting fish populations and recreational boating and fishing. So we look forward to seeing some new commercial fishers or current commercial fishers make that transition and help reduce populations there. One of the things he didn't mention, Spring has gotten the director out and he's starting to do his property visits again. So we were at the Valonia Nursery last week, taking a look at the nursery in full swing as they're pulling trees and fulfilling orders. Just kind of a quick reminder, the Indiana Nursery Program began at the turn of the century. So lost cover led to serious soil erosion throughout the state, and in 1901, the state legislature passed the first legislation creating the nursery system, and that first nursery was at Clark State Forest Reserve at that point in time. Today, we operate two nurseries, the Valonia State Nursery that's adjacent to Starve Hollow and Driftwood State Fish Hatchery, and also have the Jasper Pulaski Nursery up in St. Pierre, which adjoins Jasper Pulaski Fish and Wildlife Area. Through those two nurseries, we produce and sell approximately 3 million seedlings annually. That number can vary based upon how strong the farm bill is. In boom years, we've sold up to 7 million seedlings out of those two facilities. So it is truly an endeavor and partnership with the Department of Corrections, who helps supply some inmate labor there as well. And we had, 3 or 4 people come in for orders while we were there. One gentleman asking how exactly to plant the 500 trees he just bought. So he had a little bit of work ahead of him. So
Buy a case of beer and some pizza.
yeah, exactly, and some friends. I don't think his wife had any interest in helping with that one. Switching to Director Miller's report. Division of Water in April of 2025, Governor Braun signed Executive Order 2563 that directed a completion of a statewide water inventory and management plan. This effort builds on regional studies conducted by the Indiana Finance Authority and will include development of a statewide planning framework and recommendations for expanding Indiana's water monitoring network and development of an outlined water data hub. Water staff are busy hosting a series of stakeholder input workshops around the state to collect ideas and recommendations from community members and professionals in the water industry. In-person workshops will be held April 7th in Fort Wayne, April 16th in Lafayette, and May 12th in Knox, And then there's a virtual workshop scheduled for May 19. Final report will be presented to the governor and the General Assembly by December 31st of this year. Division of Reclamation's oil and gas program continues to plug leaking and orphaned and abandoned oil wells across the state. Initially, Indiana received $25 million in federal grants and set a goal to plug nearly 366 wells. Through effective contract bidding and management, the program has already plugged 414 wells to date, accounting for nearly a third of all known orphaned and abandoned wells. And then finally, I think Director hit on spotted lanternfly already, so I think it is just one of the many, many, many invasives that staff are focused on. I was headed down to Bloomington yesterday, and it's that time of year where as you're driving along the interstate, you'll notice two things. You'll notice the white trees and the green bushes. The white trees, Callery pear, the green bushes, Asian bush honeysuckle, both invasives. They're the early starters, so if you want to feel depressed, pay attention to that on your way home. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will turn it back to you.
Thank you both in his absence for that report. Deputy Director Sorrells.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, appreciate it. And Director Morrison, I appreciate the kind words. Thank you very much. The admin division and program staff continue to work on a series of State Board of Accounts and controller audits. We've completed 6 audits. Most impressive, last week we finished the comprehensive fish and wildlife audit, and we received high praises, and really hats off to the Fish and Wildlife Program staff for a wonderful job. That lasted almost 3 months, and I mean, it was intense. I've also received notice of our upcoming annual financial report that will begin. Director Morrison also hosts a quarterly all-staff meeting, regardless of how much I try to get him to cancel them. I can't tell you how many positive comments that we've received over the past year of staff that have really appreciated that opportunity to participate in those. The safety and training section has developed a year-long lunch and learn training program. We look forward to that. We continue to manage 50 vacancies. So as of last Thursday, we had 1 vacancy we're ready to fill. The intermittent staffing for 26 is going to be very similar to 25, just like last season.
How many do you expect to hire?
1,000, right at 1,000. We're in the process, as Director Morrison said, of exchanging the best of the worst law enforcement vehicles with other divisions.
It's on the way, Jed.
Capital projects that have been submitted for the April Budget Committee include the Falls of the Ohio Pavilion, the Patoka Raptor Center, and the Mississinawa Wildlife Barn. The really neat thing about those 3 projects is there will not be a single penny of state funds. They have all raised that money independently. And then finally, our divisions have begun budget preparations for 2028-29. They're doing facility condition assessments, and they look at each and every structure and then prioritize those for health and safety, and then we'll develop cost estimates from that. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you all. The deputy directors. We were distracted here for a minute. Did Phil get in or not?
So he's in, but the policy and the Indiana code both require that he be on video, so if he's not on video, he cannot vote. Like, the public has to be able to physically see his face so that we know he's the person.
Why do we hate the public that much? No, we were distracted up here because I know he was trying to get in, but he can't turn his camera on. So maybe he's at least listening.
Yeah, he's in. I don't know. Yeah, unfortunately, if he's not on video, both the policy and the Indiana code require that his video be turned on.
Sorry, Phil. Turn your camera on. Get out of your jammies. We will move through some agenda items that you can see the consideration for the meeting dates upcoming. I did add this, that we are going to the Potawatomi Inn, which I'm looking forward to in July, so that is reflected here. And times and details on that will be forthcoming, but we anticipate that to be a late afternoon, early evening meeting up at Pokagon. Jane Ann, as Vice Chair and Chair of the AOPA Committee, an update from you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The AOPA Committee has not met since our last meeting. We understand that there may be one matter that could potentially come before the AOPA Committee, and if so, we will get that scheduled, but again, we'll see. Thank you.
One item, what is the status of the Natural Resources Advisory Council?
I believe Stephanie, can you help me out here? I believe it has been. Yeah.
So the Natural Resources Advisory Committee was wound down as a part of that bill. I believe it. We also had a resignation from that as far as our chairman. So I think you're down to 12 board seats, is my understanding.
Well, I know he officially retired, so that would make it 11. I just wondered if we need to keep this agenda item on future agendas if it doesn't exist or if it's coming back. I just didn't know what the plan was.
That's up to.
It did not.
I don't say.
Pardon?
You can set your agenda, but I would
Well,
say
if there's no
as that
advisory
it
council,
doesn't
we don't need to
exist,
keep it on
I
the
would
agenda.
I would not recommend keeping it on the agenda.
Okay, I just
Sure.
wanted to find out if
Yep.
there was plans for it or if it's completely gone as a result of 1003 or what.
Statutorily, it was not taken out in 1003, I don't believe.
It wasn't.
No, so.
I guess you have to fill the.
Yeah.
Maybe we could find out. I just don't, if we don't have the commission, the advisory council anymore, if there's going to be a new person as chair, we don't need to keep it on the agenda if there's not going to be a advisory council.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can
It's up
discuss
to you.
that,
Okay.
As you were giving praise to your legal department, I want to recognize Whitney. We've had moving chairs. So Lisa was over there, then she was over here, and now she's here. And Whitney, I understand you're going to be leaving the department this week, and
Yeah, I will be the assistant city attorney for the city of Fishers.
so we got Precious, who I think, if you don't know Precious, it's your own fault, but she is with legal, and nice to have you here at a meeting. Lisa, I'll have you, now that you're sitting next to me, kind of reintroduce yourself and what your role is going to be going forward.
Yes, so I am a staff attorney with the Department of Natural Resources. I worked under Whitney previously on rulemaking and similar issues, and I will continue to do that. And as I have heard, we are looking for a replacement for Whitney, and hopefully someone will come in and step in. But I've been an intern with the DNR for over a year, and then I passed the bar in July and became a staff attorney as of last October. Thank you. So a little over 7 months here now.
Well, thank you. We look forward to having you in an expanded role.
Thank you.
We'll move to the body of the agenda, and I invite Rebecca McLean to come forward. Consideration of petition for rule change vital zone in an area commonly known as Party Cove on Morse Reservoir, Noblesville, Indiana. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. So this petition came in March of last year. And so the committee was assigned by Deputy Director Chris Smith for Lieutenant Wustefeld and myself to handle looking at the petition and looking at the issues that were involved in the petition, which were mainly expanding an already existing idle zone. So that would just move the boundary outward so that it would be more lakeward, and so that the boaters would have more security and safety as they're I can't remember the word.
Partying?
Partying, yeah. I was trying to think of a better term for it, but they...
Socializing.
Yeah,
Socializing.
yeah. So they're normally rafted up together. The boats are tied together. They're along the island, and so The idea was just push that boundary out so that it encompasses the island. It doesn't bisect the island and makes it safer for those recreators. So all we're asking is for an amendment to that rule. That would be the already existing 312 IAC 5-9-3 on Morse Reservoir. And so it includes also the coordinates, because coordinates are more dependable. That might be a change moving forward and updating a lot of these rules in the future. The system that was previously used was a bit outdated, so it just strikes the portion that deals with the old boundary and then includes the new coordinates.
Was there any remonstration from the partiers?
Nope.
Good, thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
questions for the hearing officer? If not, is there a motion to accept the rule change proposal as presented?
Moved.
It has been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Nice to have you. We'll move to our happy place, and I invite the director of the Division of Nature Preserves, Ron Helmick, to join us. This is a consideration of the dedication of Jack and Sue Ulrich Nature Preserve in Franklin County.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Ron Helmick. I'm the Assistant Director for the Division of Fish, Wildlife, and Nature Preserves. I'm presenting the consideration of the Jack and Sue Ulrich Nature Preserve in Franklin County. This proposed 39-acre nature preserve is located in Franklin County within the Switzerland Hills section of the Bluegrass Natural Region. The uplands in the southwest half are generally dry mesic to mesic forest, and the overstory is dominated by large mature white oak, shagbark hickory, and sugar maple that are widely spaced. The midstory is dominated by sugar maple. The lower slopes contain full canopy forest dominated by eastern red cedar and sugar maple. This site is significant as it is the first nature preserve dedicated in Franklin County. This parcel has been enrolled in the classified forest program, and the family has never harvested live timber on the land. The family states that the previous owner also did not harvest any trees. No tree stumps were observed in our observation of it, and many of the mature trees are over 24 inches in diameter. It is owned by the Indiana Department of Natural Resources, and I would like to mention that the family did a straight donation to this to the state for this. The Division of Fish, Wildlife, and Nature Preserves recommends dedication of this site as a state nature preserve.
Any questions for Ron? If not, is there a motion? Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? If not, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to add one thing back on your director's report. Could we have at the next meeting a legislative update, kind of what the bills that kind of were important to the department and how that fared?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that would be helpful. Traditionally, we've done that during the meeting, but I know we've got in the session, but it's over now, so maybe we can have a post-op.
For sure.
Appreciate that. Yep. Okay, we'll move to agenda item number 5, consideration of hearing officer report on rule processing, public hearing, and hearing officer analysis and recommendation regarding final action to add rules to 312 IAC 30 governing underground storage of carbon dioxide. The permanent rule package adds rules regarding involuntary integration and certificates of project completion. Whitney, it's your last hurrah.
Good morning. My name is Whitney Wampler, and I am the Assistant General Counsel for the Admin Bureau at the DNR. I was the hearing officer assigned to the Carbon Involuntary Integration and Certificates of Project Completion Rule Package. The proposed permanent rule package before you contains additions to 312 IAC 30, specifically regarding involuntary integration and certificates of project completion. Involuntary integration, also known as forced pooling or unitization, is the involuntary consolidation of neighboring tracts of land and mineral rights by a state agency to allow for the joint development of carbon sequestration projects, even when some landowners object. The primary purpose is to ensure that regulatory spacing requirements for wells are met, to prevent resource waste and to enable operators to develop resources under properties whose owners refuse to participate voluntarily. Due to the nature of carbon sequestration projects, involuntary integration is a common practice among states with these projects. A storage owner or operator is in no way required to use involuntary integration. The threshold set under Indiana Code 14-39-2 is that at least 70% of pore space owners must voluntarily consent to a project. Involuntary integration is also commonly used in oil and gas and other states that have pursued carbon sequestration permits. Upon completion of a carbon sequestration project, certificates of project completion under Indiana Code 14-39-2-13 provide a storage operator or owner who meets the requirements of the EPA and the Indiana Code with the option to place long-term liability for carbon storage on the state of Indiana. There is also no requirement that a storage operator do a certificate of project completion. Obtaining the certificate is an option for the storage operator or owner to place liability on the state. The other states that have pursued carbon sequestration have the same or similar mechanism upon meeting EPA and state requirements for completing a project. The rules were drafted with the rule package that came before the commission and passed on final adoption on July 15th, 2025. However, due to the nature and scope of the proposed permanent rules, the department submitted the rules contained in this rule package to the Budget Committee for review and approval prior to submitting the rules to the Indiana Register for a first comment period. The department received approval to proceed by the Budget Committee and the Office of Management and Budget, and then the State Budget Agency, and then the rules received preliminary adoption under 312 IAC 2-2-4A, which states the Secretary of the Commission may approve the rule for preliminary adoption. Secretary of the Commission Alan Morrison signed off on preliminary adoption of the rules November 20th, 2025. The rules and regulatory analysis were then submitted to the Indiana Register on November 20th as well. The first public comment period ran from December 10th, 2025 through January 14th, 2026. The first public hearing was held at the Garrison on January 14th from 6 to 8 p.m. The first public comment period was 35 days. The statute requires a 30-day comment period. Due to the department receiving substantive comments during the first comment period, a second and public hearing, the second comment period and public hearing was statutorily required. No changes were made to the rule as a result of the comments that were received during the first comment period. The notice of second comment period and public hearing was filed with the Indiana Register, and the second public comment period ran from February 11th, 2026 through March 16th, 2026. The comment period was 33 days. The second public hearing was held on March 16th from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Fort Harrison Inn in the Roosevelt Room. There were no changes made to the proposed rules following the second comment period and public hearing. The department requests approval of the proposed permanent rules for final adoption by the commission.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Bart?
Yeah, I have some questions, kind of broad questions, and then maybe some more technical questions.
Is your microphone on?
Okay, very well. The 70% number that you referenced, is that
Yes.
Basically the same for oil and gas?
So that is in the Indiana Code.
That's
So
in
we
Indiana
cannot
Code.
make
Okay,
a
good.
change to that because it occurs in the statute
Okay.
14-39-2. That was statutorily adopted by the General Assembly in 2022.
Okay, very well, thank you. And then, I guess the whole question of the certificate of completion and the state taking over all responsibility for regulatory requirements. That seems like to me at least, a big issue. And I wonder why the legislature, I know you can't speak for them, why they didn't kind of speak to that already, like during the legislative session, since they passed the recent bill. I mean,
So I actually drafted that legislation for the Legislative Services Agency in 2022. I can't give specifics about conversations that were had in the background due to attorney-client privilege, but I can say that that particular method is common in every state that has passed legislation for carbon sequestration. It's kind of a draft that's provided by, I don't think it was the EPA, but there is like a draft legislation that goes based on whether you're seeking primacy or not. and that piece was used when initially drafting that legislation. And we've done some additional research over the last year, and any state that has carbon sequestration projects in there that they're working toward getting these projects off the ground in their states, or they already have, has either the exact same mechanism or a similar mechanism. As far as I remember during the legislative session, I don't remember there being a lot of opposition to that.
Is there sorry, I don't mean to monopolize. Are there fees or insurance, or is there any type of fund paid into by these operators?
So there is a long-term liability fund that is in the Indiana code. The operators are required to pay into that every year. They are also required to have insurance through the length of their projects. So that item appears in the Indiana code, specifics appear in the rules. So how you would obtain that financial assurance appears in the rules, but the statute requires that they have the financial ability for a carbon sequestration project.
Okay, I think I probably have a couple other questions, but I'll defer to Jane Ann.
Thank you, and I may build on that, Whitney, and appreciate the background. Has there been an analysis of the assumption of risk and potential liability that the state would be assuming then, upon completion?
So I have not worked for the General Assembly for 3 years, so I don't know what conversations have been going on in the background. Because it's statutory and the General Assembly told us to adopt rules in accordance with that, there's not really, individuals can go to their state legislators and have those conversations. That's just not, that's a separate branch of government.
Great, thank
Yeah.
you. And then along those lines, and I do have a question if there's others, with regard to equitable compensation and the determination of that, will there be additional guidance on how that would be determined?
So initially when the rules were adopted, so in 2023, the General Assembly passed House Enrolled Act 1623. We were given the impression that we needed to remove as much subjectivity from all determinations as possible. So the equitable compensation determination that's listed in the rules was initially it was a first pass to remove subjectivity. Any individual that is involved in that can then appeal that to OALP all the way up the chain into judicial review. So it would be the same for any other determination made by the department under the circumstances. So there's always a way to appeal that if you feel like it's unfair.
I have a question, just bring me up to speed. So 312 IAC 2-2-4A, these rules were adopted preliminarily on November 20th.
That's correct.
So what does 312 IAC 2-2-4A specifically say, just so I can recall, because I don't recall, and maybe I'm wrong, rules that were preliminarily adopted and then come here finally without coming before the commission first for preliminary.
So 312 IAC 2-2-4A states the secretary of the commission may approve a rule for preliminary adoption. So these were done only by readoptions. So in readoptions, what was happening is the prior, I apologize, I don't remember what the director of the Division of Hearings, so Elizabeth Gamboa, was actually signing off on preliminary adoption for all readoptions as long as they met certain criteria. So the rule states at present that the secretary of the commission, so in this case Alan, can sign off on preliminary adoption. So we use the exact same form that Libby used for preliminary adoption of readoptions for preliminary adoption of the rules, and we've actually been doing that since July of last year.
So have there been other rules preliminarily adopted?
Yes. So the rule packages for invasive carp, scheduled hunts for population management, and the fees package that for the increase of non-resident fees that you guys heard in the fall, all of those were preliminarily adopted in the exact same fashion.
So in the future, is that going to be the protocol?
Yes. So the Indiana Code was amended in 2026 during session that allows for sign-off, and then due to the executive orders, some of the rules will be repealed in this calendar year.
What explain that.
So the governor adopted a executive order in early 2025, which required all executive agencies to reduce their regulations by 25% by January 1 of 2029. And so rules that are considered either redundant, so like they already appear in the Indiana Code, or if we have definitions that don't actually do anything that doesn't provide substantive stuff, or anything that's been repealed is being repealed in the administrative code as well. So the piece regarding sign off at preliminary adoption has been placed into the Indiana Code as a result.
So just so I'm clear, all rules are going to be preliminarily adopted in this fashion, so the first time we will see them is at final adoption, and it's not just applicable to readoptions, it's on all new rules?
Yes, and the rule that allows Allen to do that was actually adopted in 1996.
For readoptions?
For all of it. So
what?
Allen has been able to, so the director of the department has been able to sign off on preliminary adoption, it's my understanding, since 1996.
Because this is unusual for this commission. Meaning, I don't recall having seen rules preliminarily adopted before they come to the commission for final adoption. And maybe I'm wrong.
So I don't know if the prior, like the division of hearings and whoever would have handled that prior to the division of hearings being part of the commission, I don't know how they would have handled it prior to that. I know that that sign off was occurring for readoptions by Libby, and I know that this is in the rules and has been since 1996. They've been readopted, they haven't been amended. So based on the timing of a lot of things, the choice that we made was to do the sign off in preliminary adoption because we already received sign off from OMB and SBA. Sometimes we have to receive it from Budget Committee to just start the comment periods.
So in the future, just so the commission is responsive to this, can we get notifications as a commission for when those have been preliminarily adopted?
Sure.
I think that would be helpful.
Absolutely.
It took me a minute when I got these agenda items to kind of put the dates and timelines together, and as I said, it's just different than what we've been used to. And in essence, maybe I'm reducing this too much, the first time the commission will see rules is at final adoption.
Yeah, so the rules are actually posted to both the NRC website and the Indiana Register.
For action.
Yes, for action, yes, that's accurate, yes.
So I'm asking that the department send notice to the Natural Resources Commission whenever a preliminary adoption item has occurred, so that we are at least aware of it, knowing what's coming into the future, because on complex issues like this one, which has received a lot of attention, we all know that, it would be helpful for us because it's important as representatives to at least be cognizant of making sure, otherwise we're kind of left to figure it out on our own when it comes before final adoption. In the hearing packet that you gave us, you referenced there was, how many people were at the public meeting in January and subsequently in March?
So there were 2 people that attended in person to the public hearing in January, and then there were 22 people who attended virtually, but only, I believe, 11 or 12 people had comments. And then at the meeting in March, there were no one attended in person, and then there was 1 individual who attended virtually.
That's surprising. Any other questions or anything from as it pertains to these issues?
I've just got a couple more questions.
Sure.
I'll be brief. I'm reviewing the rules that applies to transferees and the qualifications or disqualifications on the bottom of page 11. And just a couple questions. Is the transferee, is that considered a legal entity? Or does it also encompass the owners, the members, the shareholders, the partners? What I'd hate to see is that if there's a brand new entity set up and they don't have a history of violations, but 3 of the shareholders do, then those should be considered as well. So it seems to me that and I don't know whether the DNR does this already as it applies to looking kind of piercing the corporate veil and going through and looking at the shareholders and what they've done in the past, but it seems like that should be part of that review process.
So at this time, the rules that are before you, the transferee information is the exact same as in the carbon sequestration project permit. So the rules that were adopted last July, the transferee provisions are almost identical, except in the items where it is specifically worded the carbon sequestration project permit versus the involuntary integration certificate. I apologize. What is it called? The involuntary integration order. So the transfer provisions are identical. So
Okay.
the reason they're worded like that is because we mirrored them off of each other so that the same requirements of the one would be of the other transfer provisions.
So if it's mirrored, then in the other provisions, do they look beyond the corporate shell and see who are the owners and see whether they have, been disqualified or have fines or anything like that in the past?
So the requirements are that So I know that the rules require that the transferee not have violations. Or, I'm sorry, it's not any violation. There are certain violations that are specifically listed that are federal.
And the reason I ask is, I know on AOPA, we've had some matters where, with respect to oil and gas, there is a database that shows kind of, I'm gonna call them bad actors that are listed. And I don't know, it's easy for somebody to just set up a new LLC and now they're, an applicant for a permit. But if the members of that LLC are bad actors and on a list, they've done bad things in the past, that should be considered.
Yeah, so it does look like they do have to provide the name of each responsible officer acting on behalf of the transferee and their contact information. My guess is that the process will be either identical or very similar to oil and gas. That's where we took these rules from. So the language from these rules was initially taken from oil and gas, and then we modified them a little bit to fit some of the specifics for carbon.
Bart, I think you bring up a good point. It may be worthwhile just going back and reviewing to see if that in fact is the case, and if not, there may be an opportunity in the future for amendment there to address that. We've just seen that in some
So Indiana is actually in the
cases.
process of seeking primacy. There will be additional rules forthcoming. This is the initial rules that were adopted. So the rule package initially was meant to be adopted all in one, but because of the nature of these particular rules, we decided to take those before budget committee so that the individuals who sit on budget committee could provide additional feedback. So there will be additional rules forthcoming. There was a bill adopted that passed this year, 1368, I believe, that gave the DNR the statutory ability to adopt rules that pertain to primacy, which is primary enforcement authority. So we would take over permitting Class 6 from the EPA. So in that, there are specific requirements for transfer and some other things that a lot of these rules would be updated as a result of that were not initially considered because there are different requirements of primacy than on states that do not obtain primacy.
What is the timeline on that then?
So we are in the process of drafting those now. They are almost ready to go to the EPA for review. I think the thought process is, the hope is to start those here in the next few months in the rulemaking process, and then the hope would be that they would be adopted before the end of session next calendar year at the latest. Some of that is dependent on how quickly the EPA gets us feedback feedback from other state agencies involved in that. Based on the financial piece, it will likely need to go before the budget committee, so that will be an issue, that will be a piece of this, and then also OMB and SBA review as well.
I have one last question. In some of the disqualifying factors, bottom of page 11, it's the transferee demonstrated a pattern of willful violations that resulted in damage to the environment. That seems like a pretty low bar. To me, it seems like, just a pattern of violations, let alone willful violations. If you show one willful violation, to me, you shouldn't be qualified. So I would suggest that be amended to either strike the word willful or just get rid of resulted in damage to the environment altogether.
For clarification, what provision?
Yeah, so page 11, subsection E,
Yeah.
and then, subsection F5. So it says the transferee demonstrated a pattern of willful violations that result in damage to the environment.
So you're suggesting striking?
Well, at
Item
least,
5,
at the
right?
very least, striking willful, a pattern of violations. I don't even know if it needs to damage the property. I don't know if we need to wait until if they've got a bunch of violations, then they shouldn't be able to hold a permit, if you ask me.
Is that a process that you can amend here?
No. So the Indiana Code does not allow for amendment except for during the public comment periods and public hearings.
Who, in the hearing officer report, you mentioned an internal and an external working group?
Yes.
Who specifically made up each of those?
So the internal working group was DNR Legal and then the Division of
Who
Reclamation.
specifically?
In 2023, it would have been myself, David Bausman, it would have been Dinesh Schneck, Steve Weinzapfel.
That's fine.
There may have occasionally been other individuals that were involved.
Who are they? Who is Steve and who is that?
Steve Weinzapfel is the director of the Division of Reclamation.
Okay.
Dinesh Schneck is our carbon program coordinator. And then myself and David Bausman is our former general counsel.
That was the internal group.
That's correct.
And the external group, it seemed like there was a lot of pressure for diligence to get these rules moved, and it was specifically mentioned that there was economic consequence for not moving things forward expeditiously, but I also want to know who was on the external working group.
Yeah, so there are several projects that are in process of getting Class 6 permits from the EPA, Vault, WVR, so the Wabash Valley Resources, which is also the designated pilot project under the Indiana Code. I believe there are Class 6 applications in for Poet as well. There were some other individuals that participated that were like energy companies, so I think Duke was involved a little bit, just providing feedback. And then there were some conversations I know that were had with like Farm Bureau and other things when issues regarding those would come up.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I just want clarification on what our authority is as a commission for these rules that come to us for final adoption.
Mm-hmm.
I was always under the understanding that we could remand them if we did not agree with them, even at final adoption, as long as it wasn't just a minor typo or.
So at the very least, since 1623 passed in 2023, that has not been permitted. Commissions are the only times that rules can be amended are specifically regarding comments that are made during the public comment period or public hearing. That's in the that's under 422.2. That's in the code, and it's been at least since 2023. I do not know off the top of my head if that code provision existed prior to that. And so I do not know, I know for a fact that since 1623 passed in 2023, that has not been permitted.
See, I think that's kind of, if I may, Chairman, That's kind of, I guess, the issue I'm having with the whole process. Previously, we voted on the preliminary adoption here, and we could either vote it down, I've voted against them before, or we could vote to amend it and then move it on. Now, we don't have an opportunity to do that. Now it goes to public hearing, and unless somebody says the exact word, we're supposed to rubber stamp, we can't do anything here? Is that my understanding?
Well,
Except vote
it's-
for or against?
Yeah, it's my understanding you can vote for and against it, but the Indiana Code does not allow amendment of rules except during the public comment period and public hearing.
But how would they amend it during the public comment period?
So what has happened historically is we receive a comment or during the comment period or a comment during the hearing, and then based on that feedback, if it seems to warrant a change, and the previous carbon package did have 2 changes that were made based on feedback that was received from a commenter during that I believe it was the first comment period.
I'm sorry?
In the thing I read, and maybe I'm off, that I thought it said there were no changes made after the comment period in either session.
That is for this package.
Oh, okay.
So the package I'm referring to is the one that was approved last July. Yeah.
Bart, Jean Ann, anybody else? Well, you picked one to go out well with. Is there a motion to accept the hearing officer's report as it was presented?
Move.
Second.
It's been moved in second?
On this rule?
Yes. For agenda item 5. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Is there what?
Any further discussion? All in favor,
I-
yes, go ahead.
So help me with, if we are in a situation, whether it be in this case or in other cases where there is a bill before us for final adoption, that there may be a warranted change or a recommendation to improve that for the benefit of Hoosiers, how do we do that other than by voting against the rule package?
So the options you have are to either vote in favor, vote against, or table it, but the only way to make a change at this point is during a comment period or public hearing. So the way that the statute is the statute itself that for rulemaking that is required of all state agencies, we have we have at least 1 comment period if you receive any substantive comments. Now, substantive comments it's considered very broad. So essentially, if we receive opposition at all, even if it says we don't like this, we hold a second comment period and public hearing. So the only time we wouldn't do that is we had an incident where one of the packages, the only comments we got were, we need rules for this. When we followed up about that, it was determined those were not considered substantive because that was what we were doing. So in the Indiana Code requires that the only changes that can be made after the rules have been published by LSA, so the Indiana Register, is if the IEDC comes back and says that we need to make changes based on the fiscal information we provide to them, or during the a substantive comment during the public comment period or public hearing.
Does that answer your question, Jane?
So help me walk through this just for just general information. If we would table it, what would be the next steps there?
Either the department holds another public comment period and public hearing, or you simply hear it again in May.
So if that were to be the case, and Bart brought up a good recommendation on that willful, how would that, if we table this and it comes back in the same form, how do we incorporate what the commission recommendations would be?
So you would have, if a public comment period and public hearing would be, another public hearing and public comment period would go, you would have to make the comment during that public comment period and public hearing.
A member of the commission would have to do that.
That is correct, yeah. The department cannot do that. We cannot make comments on our own rules.
Or a citizen, potentially.
A citizen can do it, yeah.
Jeff?
And how do you decide whether to hold a hearing again versus just waiting until the next meeting?
That is not up to me.
How would that be decided?
The commission would have to ask the proper parties at the department.
Can you rephrase that? Rephrase the question and the answer, so I didn't quite follow that.
Whether this will come back to us without a public hearing or without a public hearing, I was asking how will the department decide whether there is another public hearing or not?
And my response was that the commission would need to make that request to the proper parties at the department.
Jane?
Yeah, I just want to, I know it's not only this rule, there may be others in the future. So to play this out under current statute, we would have to table this. The commission would then recommend to the department to hold another hearing, at which time a citizen or a member of the commission would have to bring up the recommendation that was discussed, for example, here, to improve the proposed rule. Then the department would have to determine whether or not to incorporate or integrate that into the rule change, to then bring the final rule as potentially amended back to the commission for approval.
That is one option, yes.
So for clarification, you said that statute that I asked you about can permanently adopt preliminarily. The secretary may.
May, yeah.
Is that the practice going forward, or is it on a case-by-case basis?
So that has been the practice since July 1 of 2025.
And going forward, that will be the practice?
Again, that is not my determination to make.
Because I think what we're highlighting here and what I'm hearing with Jane's question is that really makes us neutered.
Yeah.
Do you interpret it that way?
So all I can do is follow exactly what the Indiana Code tells me to do. When it comes to when things can be amended, that's statutory. And every executive agency is required to follow the exact same process.
Understood. I'm just saying that, Bill 1003 was to increase efficiency. That doesn't appear to be efficient because we're now asking a bunch of questions after the fact.
So 1003 is a completely different bill from 1623.
I understand that.
So 1623 was passed in 2023 dealing with rulemaking. It was determined at that time that the term that got used a lot during the 2023 legislative session was unelected bureaucrats. Things that were initially not put into rule, the General Assembly determined it was a good idea to put those things into rule, and then they amended a lot of the way that they wanted things handled for rulemaking. So the Indiana Code always controls, the administrative code is a supplement. So they basically determined that the new process should look the way that it does, and that's the statute we're required to follow. So even if there were to be changes, they have to be made either by the IEDC Small Business Ombudsman, or they have to be requested during the public comment period and public hearing.
I would respectfully request that on all preliminary adoptions, if it's going to be a complicated issue at all, if it's a simple issue going forward, I think that the secretary should certainly have the ability to move it forward. That makes sense. But anything that's complicated like this, I think that
Or receives significant public
that the
input.
commission should have an opportunity to weigh in on prior to, in order to adopt it preliminarily, and then let it go through the process.
Okay.
Any other questions? It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Yes.
Are we voting yes or no, or is there a third option to table this issue? How is the vote?
There's a motion and we're discussing now, so that's an option. It's been moved and seconded. I don't hear any further discussion, so I ask for a vote to accept the hearing officer's report as it was presented.
Aye. Are you we roll calling?
I think we better roll call.
Brian Pointer,
Aye.
Jane Ann Stotts, Alan Morrison,
Aye.
Carl Woodridge,
Aye.
Noel Sidlick, Laura Hilden, Jeff Stallman.
Sorry, I'm a little unclear. Do I vote no or table? If I
This motion is to move it forward, so it's either yes or no, or you could modify that.
Sorry, modify that in what way?
The motion on the table has been moved, seconded, and we've had discussion, and the move is to accept the hearing officer's report, and that's what we're roll calling on right now.
Okay. Aye.
Art Harriman,
No.
John Wright.
Aye.
What was the vote?
8 yeas, 1 nay. It carries.
Thank you very much. We haven't had a roll call vote in a while. Well, yeah, we did. I guess we did when we had people online.
Well,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
May I request on behalf of the commission that we do have in writing a review of what the process is and what the options are for the commission member as rules come before us for approval? I think some guidance there would be.
Restate that, because I like where you're going, but restate that again, please.
Just request that, on behalf of the commission, that the staff summarize what the options are in the process for rules that come before the commission, as far as
I see.
what can be approved, amended, tabled, and what those steps are.
I agree. Noted. Any other comments? I have one comment that I'd like to offer. It's been a rough several months, and the legislature saw fit to do away with this commission, so I want to make a statement. I think there's been some discussion on this, but for more than 60 years, since 1965, the Natural Resources Commission has served this state with diligence, integrity, and a deep respect for the process and the people. That legacy really does matter. It deserves to be honored and not sidelined. Today I share disappointment and frustration, and I think you heard some of that today. Throughout this most recent legislative session, which we have not heard any comment in this commission with the chairman, me, or any other commission member regarding a pivotal House issue 1003. It would have eliminated this body. There was a posture of neutrality by the DNR, but actions, unfortunately, sometimes speak louder than words. A lack of respect to this commission. These two things alone reflect, frankly, a level of disregard, if not disdain, for the commission, the public's input, and the organization that supports or works with the DNR regularly. We're having some breakdowns of process, and I think you've seen a little bit of that today. Statutes certainly have been followed, but maybe they have. I'm sure there's going to be more of these issues to come. It now appears that the commission will have little understanding of what is happening until the commission is asked for final adoption. That's not good stewardship, it's not partnership, it's not acceptable. It raises fundamental questions. What is the role of this commission if we're excluded from the process at pivotal points? What other efforts will be made to bypass the Natural Resources Commission? After 6 decades of service to citizens of Indiana, it is disheartening to feel that the work and role of this commission are no longer appreciated, or worse, no longer considered necessary. I want to be clear. The commission was not created to be an afterthought. It exists to provide oversight, guidance, accountability by statute. At present, decisions are being made independently, going it alone, rather than in collaboration with this body. More broadly, we're being left in the dark. That's not good practice. It undermines trust, weakness, and the process, and ultimately does a disservice to the people. Finally, I would remind everyone that groups and stakeholders who have supported, worked with, and frankly, even argued with this commission and DNR for decades are needed now more than ever. I would hope that strengthening those relationships becomes a practice, not distancing from them. It's a shame that after all these years, the Commission finds itself in this position, but I don't believe it's too late for that to change. I would like to offer continuing to work, and Jane, appreciate your suggestion on giving us some notice, the notice period when those preliminary things are adopted. I would like to know on behalf of the Commission so that we are prepared moving forward. So I just wanted to make sure that that was noted, because we've had no discussion of this, and it's a pretty significant issue, so it needed to be brought out. And we are adjourned.